Russia is the absolute biggest country on Earth, and it's a super diverse place with lots of different cultures that live in a land that's larger than the surface of the moon. To manage such a large territory, the country is divided into dozens of federal subjects. And today we'll talk about a large territory on the eastern far side of the country, Khabarovsk Krai. Hello, and welcome to 7 Facts. As big as Turkey, but with less than 2 people on average per every square kilometer, Khabarovsk Krai is one of Russia's easternmost regions. It's a mixture of mostly Russians and indigenous Tungusic people, all spread out between large areas of wilderness and few and far between urban and rural settlements, giving the place a very unique feeling. The climate is also wild here, with temperatures swinging from hot, nice summers to severe cold and long winters of the -30-degree type. This is an exotic place not even Russians know too much about, so this episode should be interesting. Although it isn't the most populated area in Russia, Khabarovsk Krai was explored by Cossack troops pretty early on. They began exploring and settling the area in the 17th century. Before that, Khabarovsk was inhabited mostly by local Tungus, Manchu and Nivks people. Because it's such a faraway place, imperial troops couldn't easily reach Khabarovsk, and the local people managed to do a pretty good job resisting and even kicking out the Russian settlers. However, as new cities and ports started to pop up, while at the same time the Chinese influence weakened, the Tsarist Empire eventually managed to gain a permanent foothold, pushing the locals into minority. Things really took off in the early 20th century, when new railways opened carrying hundreds of thousands of new settlers to Khabarovsk within just decades. That being said, due to its isolation and harsh climate, Khabarovsk never managed to gain a large population comparable to other more developed regions. The city of Khabarovsk is the capital and largest of the Krai, bearing the same name. It's also the largest city in the Russian Far East, having overtaken its much more famous cousin Vladivostok in 2015. Despite what you might expect, Khabarovsk is a surprisingly cosmopolitan and modern city. Museums, theaters, parks, nightclubs all add an international flavor to the city's atmosphere. The city's historic center is also in a pretty good shape, so yes, there's plenty to see and explore even in the far reaches of the Russian Federation. Before we get to the next fact, I'd like to ask you one thing. This video isn't sponsored, so perhaps you'd consider supporting this channel by becoming a patron. If you still enjoy my content, go visit my Patreon page and help this channel out. And with that said, let's go to fact number 4. There's an old urban legend in Khabarovsk that's still being told by many to this day. The story goes that there's an actual underground city beneath the actual city, complete with streets, buildings and lots of tunnels. Well, more accurately, there are hundreds of kilometers of tunnels connecting various buildings throughout Khabarovsk, including escape tunnels leading out of the city. Apparently, this hidden infrastructure is a just-in-case enterprise built for the former nomenclature of the Soviet government. Obviously, many tried to find these tunnels, but all have failed. But if you're an urban adventurer, who knows, you might get lucky and find the tunnels. Just take care not to get caught. I hear gulags aren't the nicest places to be. Khabarovsk has for decades been in sort of a competition with its more famous neighbor Vladivostok. But Khabarovsk is by no means a lesser of a city. In fact, it could easily be a highlight in the long line of cities along the Trans-Siberian Railway. The best time to visit is of course in the summer, when attractive parks, beaches, outdoor beer tents with live music and classical architecture await any visitor. The city also houses some of the best museums east of Moscow. Thanks to the hundreds of thousands of Asian travelers coming through the city each year, Khabarovsk has a distinct international feel, something not very common for the Russian provincial centers. So, a European city in the eastern extreme of Asia, with both old classical buildings and Soviet-era neighborhoods, this is actually a city worth discovering. Khabarovsk Krai also has some islands. The highlight of them are the Shanty Islands, one of the most beautiful and unique places of unspoiled nature. There are no people living here, and since 2013, the islands are protected as a national park to help preserve the pristine natural ecosystem. There are many endangered species of birds inhabiting Shantar, but also lots of bears, caribous, foxes, otters, reindeers, and so on. The waters around the islands are frozen for about 8 months a year, so all sorts of seals and whales are also often seen around here. This is as natural as it can get, and it's worth every penny to preserve it. One of the last major stops on the mighty Trans-Siberian Railway is in Khabarovsk. Starting your journey in Moscow, you'll have to cross 8,523 kilometers and no less than 7 different time zones to reach this city. If you're wondering, you'll be on this train for 5 days and 15 hours before reaching Khabarovsk. This mega project, which is to this day the longest railway line on the planet, began its construction in 1890, but it was only in 1916 that the railway connected St. Petersburg to Vladivostok, which is actually not that long given the immensity of this project. By the way, thanks largely to this railway line, Khabarovsk and many other Siberian regions were populated by literally millions of peasants from all over the Russian Empire. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Leave your comments downstairs, and don't forget there's a Patreon page where you can support this channel. I hope to see you next time. Bye.